her insecurities make her overly obsessed with gaining some kind of buy-in from the person that she's with. So she becomes so needy on camera when she's around somebody who is intimidating to her. Hello, how are you? Welcome to my channel. My name is Cheer Denise. We are going to be doing episode 6 of Meghan Markle Show with Love Meghan. Now, this is an episode that was pretty interesting because she was having the chef from London who had done her wedding reception, who had cooked them an anniversary dinner, and somebody whose restaurant they seem to like to have gone to. This is Claire Smith. She is the chef at Core, and it's a 3 Michelin star restaurant. So this was a really interesting episode because this woman knows what she's doing in the kitchen. And so the cooking's a lot more technical than it is, in other episodes. Other episodes have perfectly good food, but it's like food that you could easily do at home, or you're probably doing yourself as a home cook. And there was more style, pizzazz, intricacies to this particular recipe. This is like one of those recipes where I like to watch them cook it, but I would not try to do this on my own. And it isn't even complicated. There's just like lots of little steps, and I would be afraid I wouldn't be able to get the timing right. But it's fun to watch people cook like this. And since I've never eaten at a Michelin star restaurant, I wouldn't know what goes on behind those doors. And so it's fun to see how much work goes into just one plate of food. As far as Meghan is concerned in this episode, Meghan is going to do something multiple times this episode. Something that she does just as a matter of her public persona, but something that I find very grating. And I've mentioned it before. But it's that she will share something with the person she's talking to as though this just came to mind, as though it's off the cuff, as though she just thought to tell you. But it's actually a little bit of information or, a little piece of personal trivia or something like that she's actually shared multiple times before. Okay? And she's going to do this a couple of times in this episode. And I got to tell you, it really grates on me because with somebody who has her breadth of life, her number of chapters, as she likes to refer to her life. I've had so many chapters in my life. She ought to have innumerable stories. There ought to be so many things that she could share with her audience. And it bothers me not because I believe she has to tell us all the things about her life. She doesn't, but she's chosen to be a public figure. So it just feels to me like, why would you choose to be in the public but be so cagey constantly? This obviously is a role that you want. You want to be seen by others. You want people's interest in your life. So why then do you always make it seem as though you're sort of being put upon and you've selected a couple of things you're willing to share with people and then that's it, that's all they're getting? I don't understand that. To me, I feel like if I had put myself in a public place where I'm inviting people into my life and I'm talking about lifestyle, I'm talking about myself, it's not as though she's really famous because she's like, I don't know, like a scientist, or she's, an artist and she's putting art out, but she's not personally asking you to come into her life. She's opened the doors to a seeming home. I know it's not her personal home, but she's opened the doors to her home to invite people in so that people can learn how she likes to live life. Well, in doing that, you're inviting people into what you personally are like. It's not, people don't know you because of some other factor other than, I like to live my life this way. Do you want to come in? And then we come in and we get the same trotted out bits of information, the same trotted out stories, the same perspectives on every little thing said in the same exact way. And it is almost like she has written herself out a couple of lines and then she's not deviating from the script. We've said it before and we'll say it again. She's very much like Kamala Harris in this respect. These are a couple of things I'm going to say in interviews. This is a couple of stories I'm willing to tell. And then I'm just going to keep saying it and I'm going to pretend like you've never heard this before. All right, let's get into the episode. She is going to have Claire Smith. Obviously, it's obvious to us by this point that she has received a list of dislikes and likes. And she is going to make sure that she tailors her gifts or her offerings to fit the palate of the person coming. Well, there's no sin in that, but Claire really likes green juice and has a green juice every single day. So Meghan is going to go out into their garden and she is going to pick things for the green juice. And as she's picking the things, she says, this is a real labor of love because I don't even like juicing. I really don't like the process at all. So the fact that I'm doing this for Claire just shows you how much I really like her. She's introduced Claire to us at this point as the woman who cooked at their wedding, and that Meghan had gone and eaten at her restaurant right after they were engaged and was like trying to hunt her down and get her to cook for the wedding and yada yada. Which at this point, really puts a bucket of cold water on the relatability issue. As we go on to talk about her royal wedding and all the food and all the times Claire's cooked for her, this idea that Meghan is just like you and I really begins to crumble. Not that we'd ever bought into it, but Meghan has lived an extraordinary, elegant, elevated life. And I don't know if that's why she struggles to be relatable, because it's been such a long time since she was, as she likes to remind us, at the drive-thru getting herself an apple pie to celebrate small moments. But I don't fault her for having a life in which it was wealthy enough to have a Michelin star chef cooking at her royal wedding. That's her life. That's her life story. That's awesome for her. Good for her. But I do think that she struggles so hard to be relatable because she doesn't live a relatable life. And that's okay. Very few of us could relate to being married to a prince, and she doesn't need to try to temper her life so that she can fit our palates. We live two completely different lives. And in fact, sometimes it's fun to watch the way the other half live. Why do you think the Kardashians have become so famous? Because people like to watch the opulence. There's no hold bars on what those people can do. So Meghan ought to embrace the fact that she can live a big life rather than trying to pretend like she's poor like one of us, or because she once was poor, she knows what it is now. Not anymore. She doesn't remember what it's like. She hasn't been poor in decades. So for her to pretend, or for her to continue to try to package her life into some sort of little bite-sized bit that we can't have that life. But that's okay. That's fine. And if it's not fine with us, that's an us problem. That's a people of America problem. It's fine if somebody has more than you. It's really going to be okay. And that person ought not try to pretend to be like you. And that's why there's always this disjoint. We're dealing with a very privileged person. And I don't even say privileged because that makes it sound as though she was given something that you aren't given. Yeah, in some sense, she has a life that you don't have. But, there's privileges that you have that she doesn't have. Like peace and sanity. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. She's going to make the green juice. She's picking all her stuff and being rather begrudging about it. She goes into the house and she's like, I haven't done this in decades. I don't like juicing. And I don't like juicing because it's a mess. It's a very messy process. She's peeling all the things, or cutting up all the things. Really, you don't have to peel it because the juicer will send the pulp out one way and the juice out the other. And she's just sort of bemoaning this. And I'm like, well, then don't do it. Because Claire's going to watch this. And if, she sees you just sort of grumbly making the juice, don't do it. Is there nothing else Claire will eat that you can do with a happy attitude? Anyway, she makes the juice, and I find this to be an interesting moment. She has a juicer, and she's like, well, technology's really changed. It's a very quiet juicer. And you know how a juicer will put the liquid out on one side and the pulp out on the other? Meghan is watching the machine, and she starts giggling like an 8-year-old boy. Brooklyn/Michael/director says he's not going to comment on what's going on right here, and Meghan cannot control her laughing. She just thinks it's so funny. Well, for those of us who have 8-year-old boys, we can imagine why she thinks this is so hilarious. But also, I feel like Meghan, see, this is exactly why your little mythology about yourself being this very ladylike person just crumbles to dust. Because you can't stop yourself from laughing because you think the machine looks like it's pooping. Okay? So enough already with this. This is also not a relatable moment. Look, I am a 37-year-old woman. If I am juicing, the thought might come to my mind that this machine does look rather funny, but I wouldn't ever, there would be nothing on my visage that would ever let you know that is a thought that passed through my head. Because I'm 37 years old. Okay, so sure, I can think the thought, but do I need to giggle uncontrollably? Because I have nothing else to say in the moment, so I have to try to make a relatable moment, because in this moment I'm just going to be laughing so hard. So hard that I'm having to brace myself on the counter because it's so funny the way the machine looks. But of course, everybody, she is a lady. Between bursts of laughing about the pooping juice machine, Meghan lets us know that Claire's coming and they're going to be making some fish and they're going to be making some bread and they're going to be learning the art of beautiful plating. And of course, my heart clenched for Meghan. Wait a second. The art of beautiful plating, that's Meghan's wheelhouse. How is she ever going to give this job to somebody else? That's the only thing she knows how to do, And now Claire's going to come in and she's going to take over plating. But wait a second, what? What is Meghan literally supposed to do on this set right now if she doesn't get to put on her flowers and her trash? It's going to be a hard one for Meghan. we're done making the juice. We're going to set that aside. We need to talk about a present for Claire because, of course, Meghan always makes something for everybody unless you are Jay Shetty and his beautiful wife, then you get nothing. But Meghan is going to make a little craft and she's going to give it to Claire. And we cut to a scene where she's going to make Claire a little travel bag. Claire came all the way from London for this, so she's going to have to travel back. And so Meghan decides to make a little travel bag. Let me just put a positive note here. I love this idea. This is a really great idea. And there's quite a few things that Meghan has done, both in this episode and in the previous one, that are great reminders about how to make a guest of yours feel nice. I have a cousin who does this kind of thing all the time. And I've always, always, always appreciated how thoughtful she is about the people who come into her home. She always does stuff like this. Some of us don't have the funds to go above and beyond like this for people, but if you can, and it doesn't have to be this extraordinary, it is a nice thought. When I watch this show, it's not as though there's nothing to take away from it. And if you do choose to watch the show, you might be inspired to make more beautiful dinners. You might be inspired to try a recipe, and you might be inspired to be more thoughtful of others. So that's a really positive thing about the show. And this was a good idea. So she decides to make a little travel bag for Claire. She's got a canvas bag. She's got this iron-on tape sort of thing where she's written on the tape, and then you put it onto the bag, and it transfers over. And of course it's her handwriting and it says, "Safe travels, Claire," and then she irons that on the bag, and then she fills the bag with this, that, and the other. Things like hand sanitizer and breath mints, lotion, lip balm. She puts in some cashmere socks and an eye mask, and she's just stuffing the bag with this, that, and the other. It's a thoughtful gesture, especially because Claire's going to be on a plane, and these might be some nice little things to have on hand. I do think, though, I just want to say that while she's packing the bag with things, she wants to show us the socks, the cashmere socks that she got, which she also had monogrammed. And she's got an eye mask that she got that matches the color. And there's a voiceover at this point because she wants to remind you that the socks and the eye mask match in color, that she went, the extra mile to get them to match. They look like a set. They didn't come together, but she wanted them to match. And the voiceover is so sped up in order for her to get it in before the next thing she says that it's almost cartoonish.
Monogrammed it for her. Why not? Eye mask for that great nap you're going to take. I chose matching colors, so it feels like a set. I chose matching colors, so it feels like a set. I chose matching colors, so it feels like a set.
And this is by no means the first time that I've heard voiceovers that are just wonky in audio. Now look, I am the worst when it comes to audio. I know my audio is not great on here, and that's probably why I have an ear for it other places, because I'm so busy criticizing my own. But this sped up a little bit just so that she can get in the fact that, look guys, they match. Why? Why did we put this cartoonish voice in? To remind us that she had the initiative to make a matching eye mask and sock set. We could have gone without that cartoonish voice, because all it does is distract me now. But she's got to get that word in. All right. Now it's time for Claire to arrive. Claire comes. She meets Claire outside. She brings Claire's bags in and everything, and they go to the kitchen. Now, this is what I want to say about Claire. I'm talking about a skilled woman in her craft, obviously, she knows all the things. Her method is flawless, and she's very, very peaceful in the kitchen. She doesn't have high, chaotic energy. She is just very methodical and going on to the next right thing. But Claire, unlike some of the other guests, is not a TV chef. So she is... And it could be British Reserve as well. So it could be cultural, and it could just be the fact that she's working in a real kitchen. She's not doing a Netflix show. And so she's not a super charismatic person. And most of her responses are awesome and cool when Meghan says things. So I anticipated us needing to cut away a lot from Claire because I really wasn't sure what we were going to do with Claire's personality. She seems lovely and divine, and again, excellent at what she does. And the episode was very interesting because of her skill set. But with Meghan's personality and with Claire's personality, I was worried. We do cut away quite a few times. But when Claire's on camera, Claire's doing things of magnitude and worth, and so thank the Lord for that. It's really nice to watch an episode of a show and just sort of marvel at the skills of the people on screen. Of course, we got to have the obligatory chit-chat. You always got to have your small talk. And they're reminiscing together about all the times Claire's cooked for Meg. Again, real cold water on this idea that she's relatable. Meghan offers her the juice. She really wants Claire to compliment her on her skill set. what I've realized about Meghan at this point is that Meghan is a words of affirmation girly. She needs to be told explicitly and in detail why you think that she's awesome. And in the absence of that, she will compliment herself. So this is just round one of many, where Claire does not effusively compliment Meghan on the juice, so Meghan decides that she will compliment herself on the juice. Then Meghan wants to get Claire to try the salt and vinegar potato chips that she made. Crisps, if you will. Meghan calls them crisps for her guests' benefit because Claire might not know what she meant if she called them potato chips. And when she has Claire try the chips, Claire's just not an over-the-top person. She's not going to, like, fall to the floor, smack her forehead, lean against the counter in ecstasy. Like, it's a good potato chip. And she's like, that's good. Meghan's face of disappointment. She is crushed. Because we just had a segment 5 seconds ago in which we watched her make these chips. And it was a real, she really was proud of herself for not slicing herself on that mandolin. And as somebody who recently sliced themselves on a mandolin, I can understand her excitement at being able to execute that task correctly. And she enjoyed the crew's excitement about the chips. If you've ever made homemade potato chips, the whole household is thrilled and beyond measure excited about the homemade potato chips. And the crew reflected typical reaction to a fried potato. Is there anything that's better? I don't know what it is. I can say no to anything. I can say, I love food dearly, but I can say no if I'm really being like, okay, I gotta stick to my diet. But I cannot say no to a potato chip. I have zero abilities to say no to a potato chip. I will fall down into the Hades of hell with a potato chip. I don't know what it is. I just can't say no to that salty goodness. So Meghan has made the chips. Everyone has loved the chips. But when she offers them to Claire, Claire isn't unkind about it. She's just like, that's good. Meghan's face. Meghan's face. She's just so sad that Claire's not just heaping on the compliments. Oh, okay.
That's great. Okay? Yeah, great.
Meghan's just so sad. Oh, well, I guess it's just okay then. All right. But now we got to get to cooking. All right. Claire says they're going to start by making the bread dough because she has decided that for their meal that night, they're going to make Parker House rolls. Now, if you've had Parker House rolls, I think they originated in a hotel in Boston, if I'm not incorrect. But basically, it's a dinner roll, but they're made in segments, and then you bake them all together, and then you just pull them apart. But it's essentially just a dinner roll. Claire's got a twist on this, though. She puts quite a bit of pepper in them. I think 4 teaspoons of pepper. It's enough that when the rolls are done, you can clearly see them speckled with pepper. So that's an interesting take. But they got to make the bread dough, right? And Claire said that Meghan used to love this specific loaf of bread that she would make. Meghan would send out for it. She loved this bread so much. Even if they weren't going to go eat at the restaurant, she wanted some of Claire's bread. And so Claire had thought about sending that recipe to Meghan for the show, but it's a very complicated recipe. There's 2 separate starters and something called bread stock. I'd never even heard of this. And bread stock is like a flavored water that you add to the bread in order to enhance the flavors. So I'm like, wow, that is interesting. I've heard of different starters. I've heard of different consistencies of starters, but I had never heard of a bread stock. So that was interesting. But that's too complicated, And so we're going to do the Parker House rolls because anybody could do those. So they get that started, And as they're making these rolls, they have a really confusing conversation about the fact that people in England pronounce words differently than people in America. And that's going to have to become a theme because now every time Claire says something that differs from American pronunciation, Meghan's got to make a point of it, and it gets a little tedious after a while. But I'm going to be honest with you, it took me a second to figure out what they're talking about in this segment because it isn't immediately clear. I wish I could play for you. There's just so many things that I wish I could play for you because I want you to know what I'm talking about. But they're talking back and forth and saying words back and forth, but you never realize that what they're referring to are words that they pronounce differently because Claire will say one word, but not the differing pronunciation. And then Meg will answer back with another word, but not a different pronunciation. So they're just kind of like saying words back and forth to each other, but you're not hearing the British pronunciation versus the American pronunciation. So for the longest, I was like, wait, what are you guys talking about? And it's not like it goes on for 30 minutes or anything, but it's just this like throwing out of words. And I would have liked, I think, to hear the American pronunciation versus the British pronunciation because that's interesting. But now Meghan sees this as a prime opportunity for her to add in one of her little tidbit lines. One of those prepared lines that she always uses. Wherever she is, she's got to throw out something about home life. And see, this is one of the reasons why we feel like home life is not for real. Because home life seems to consist of like 3 things. And one of the things is, Papa has pronounced certain words around the children so that now they have the British pronunciation in their heads and they always use that. Papa says zebra. And now the children say zebra instead of zebra. This is the problem. One, we've already heard this. You told Drew Barrymore all about zebra.
Some of the words that they still say with a British accent, so they'll say zebra. And what else do they say? They have these little moments where it comes out.
And I'm like, is that the only word that Harry has ever said to them? Did he just walk around saying zebra, zebra, zebra? Because there's got to be a plethora of other words that he says that differ from the way she says them. That's the only one she can ever remember to say. Her reasoning for why the kids don't use any of this cooking terminology or the different words for herbs, vegetables, and things that they were throwing back and forth is that Papa doesn't do as much cooking, and so the children don't know the British words for the cooking things. But he does say zebra. My other contention with this is, Papa, I never am in an adult conversation with anybody and refer to my husband as, well, Daddy says. I mean, you do that with your kids, especially when they're little. Daddy's going to be home in 5 minutes, things like that. Is Daddy going to read you a book? Things like that, because you're teaching your children what to call their father. But who in an adult conversation refers to the person that they're married to as Papa, Daddy, whatever? Only a psycho. The other thing is, why can't we use the man's blessed name? And I have a theory. It came to me like a bolt of lightning. Do we not use Harry's name because in doing so she would be promoting her brand, her lifestyle, her existence through the royal family? Because she knows she's only relevant through Harry. So when they came over to America and they had the whole meeting back in England about y'all aren't going to use your life. You're not going to use the British royal family in order to fund your next activities. This next stint of your life is not funded by our name. So you're not allowed to use us and to use your titles in order to gain fame and fortune. I'd always thought that she was neglecting that completely and ignoring that they had made that agreement entirely because she goes around as Meghan the Duchess of Sussex. So is that not her using her title? I would think it is. But if you'll notice, she never uses Harry's name. It's always H. It's always my husband. In this case, it's Papa. But never Harry. And I've always thought, okay, we know who you're married to. Why are you neglecting to use his given name? It seemed so disrespectful to me. And of course, that didn't shock me because she's disrespected his entire existence by acting as though his life and his family and his culture mean nothing to her. She's got to run back to America and live the life she wants, and he's going to get dragged by the ear. So her continuing disrespect of him was almost expected. I didn't even expect her to be polite about him or kind about him because nothing in her actions has shown it. And I always equated the fact that she refused to use his name as just yet one more sort of demeaning of his existence. But now I'm like, is she not allowed to say Harry? Is that an agreement that they've made? Because at this point it's weird. I've never heard her say Harry in any interview. And not in an interview, not in any setting. It's always my husband, it's always H or Papa. And I'm wondering now if it's a legality. What do you guys think? All right, to continue on. After we get off of the American pronunciation versus it's time to go to the fish market because they need to get some fish for dinner. Claire's thrilled. She loves to go to market. She tells us a very interesting thing. She says that depending on where you live in the world, the temperature of the water makes the flavor of the fish different. And she says that the coldness of the Atlantic makes for more delicate fish. Who knew? Probably people who know things, but not me. I know so very little about so very many things. I'll tell you what I do know. I know how much my kids weigh. Okay? Let's talk about this next segment with Meghan not knowing how much her kids weigh. This is a very, very weird moment. They go to the fish market and they're looking at all the giant fish and they're talking about what they might want to get. And they decide that they're going to get halibut because halibut is like the most popular fish at this particular fish market or in this segment of the world. And they go and they look at the big catch of fish and they're just trying to decide which one they want because it's only the two of them eating. And so Meghan picks up this one big fish and the guy who owns the fish market's like, how much do you think that weighs? So Meghan's like hefting it around and she's like, well, it feels like my daughter. So I'm thinking 23 pounds. How much do you think that fish weighs? Ain't no 23 pounds. That fish weighs 8 pounds. Has Meghan ever picked up her kids a day in her life? Or anything? How could you be so colossally wrong? 23 pounds versus 8 pounds is an enormous amount of difference. If she'd picked up the fish and she said it was like 13 pounds and it was 8 pounds, all right. It's still pretty off, but, whatever. Sometimes things feel different when it's dead weight. To be so different between 23 pounds and 8 pounds, and your reasoning for the 23 pounds was, this feels like my daughter. Well, I guess we know who's carrying her. Not you. Maybe the nanny. Maybe Papa. But not you. Maybe that's why she looked like she was struggling so much in this picture. Because imagine how hard it is for her to carry these 2 kids. If she's going to pick up an 8-pound fish and thinks it's 23 pounds, the weight of her kids probably crushed her. They go back to the kitchen, right? And they're going to bake these rolls. This is kind of comical, honestly. They get out the dough, and Claire says that they need to roll this bread. It's risen. They're going to punch it down, make it into the little balls of dough, because in the Parker House rolls are baked all together, and then you pull off the one that you want. And she says that they're going to get out the food scale and make sure they have exactly 30 grams of dough in each ball. Meghan's blown away. I just can't believe that you legitimately weigh out every single one of these balls of dough. And Claire's like, well, you have to be precise. And Meghan's like, well, yes, of course, in your restaurant, yes. So that makes sense. That's why you've got the Michelin stars, because you care about things like this. I'm like, any chef would care about things like this because it's how they're going to bake evenly. Now, as a home chef, we don't have to care so much because you just eyeball that mess. At least I do. And I'm sure Meghan does too, because that's what she always talks about. Anytime people are just throwing things into a pot, that's when she's most comfortable. And quite frankly, so am I. They're getting these balls of dough, and Claire's showing her how to do it. Okay. It's almost as though Meghan pulled her eyes out and put them in her back pockets. Her inability to watch what Claire's doing and then replicate the motions with her own body, it's flabbergasting, because this is not hard. They take the ball and they kind of rub it against the counter in order to kind of create like a tight skin around it, Then they use their hand, they cup their hand, like you would when you're a kid, when you're playing with Play-Doh or clay or something, to get that rounded surface with no lines on it. And they're using their thumb to sort of control the ball of dough, and they're cupping their hands. Meghan is doing this business. Claire's like, cup your hand. Meghan's like, oh, you mean like this? No, cup it, Meghan. I don't understand what's happening. It's just so crazy to me. It's weird to me to see somebody who cannot replicate the movements that are, it isn't as though Claire pulled out a guitar and was like, now before we begin, let me show you 3 of the hardest chords to do. This is not like hand crippling exercise. This is literally cup your hand over this ball of dough and move it around with your thumb. Like so. While they're rolling around this dough and Meghan's unable to cup her hand to do such activity, they start remembering the days of yore. Remember way back at the wedding? Remember when I met you? Remember when you made our wedding food? And Claire said that she was a little bit flabbergasted because Meghan wanted these late night bites, for the late reception that was going on into the night. And so Claire had been commissioned to make all these like little snacky bites. And one of the things they wanted for late night bites was fried chicken. And it's probably because I'm an American. It was so interesting to me. She says she's like, I didn't even know how to make fried chicken. But we figured it out. And now, says Claire, we still have that same item. It's an off-menu item, but we still make it. And then they show us a picture of like fried chicken covered in caviar. So not an American version. But Meghan is so complimented by the fact that an idea off of her menu is now still being served at Claire's restaurant. And that, she just feels like she can just die and go to heaven now. Oh my gosh. They are still serving my fried chicken at Core. This off-menu item is still available. Oh my gosh, so she's, over dramatic and super excited about this menu that if you don't even know, I don't even know how you order off menu items. Is it just like a secret? Like you have to know to ask for it? I don't know. I'm not fancy, you guys. Everyone's like, we could never have told. Anyway, they're putting in their little balls of dough into these pans. And Meghan wants to use that opportunity to give advice to the masses that, you can just use anything you have. This little bit of homespun wisdom was produced because Claire asked for a paper towel in order to wipe oil on the inside of the pan. Meghan is thrilled that Claire's asked for a paper towel because she bets you have a paper towel in your kitchen too. And you know what? You don't have to have fancy things. You can just use what you have. Okay. And Claire's like, yeah, I mean, if you buy there's nothing we're using in our kitchens that you couldn't have in your kitchen. Just buy the good stuff and it'll last a lifetime, which makes Meghan want to remind everybody that her grandmother fries chicken in a cast iron skillet, and then that cast iron skillet was passed down to her mom, and, her mom still has it, and, like, that's an example. All this homespun wisdom. Meghan, at which point in your childhood were you going over to your grandma's house for fried chicken? Do you even know your grandma? I don't even think you do. Because I don't even think you knew your mom until 5 minutes ago. Because your mom was here, there, and everywhere where your dad raised you. Okay? So enough with this homespun wisdom. My grandmother used to make apple butter. My grandmother fries chicken in a skillet. Where does your grandmother live? The backwoods of Kentucky? What are you talking about? Okay? Enough of this already. What is this homespun lore that you have of your tales of yore? It's almost as though she wants us to think that her grandmother is like, I don't know, like this charming southern black woman, and who Meghan has zero hint of it in her personality, her demeanor, or any of her actual stories. But she continues to refer to this like old grandmother. She's over there churning butter and crocheting quilts and making a pair of booties for the latest baby at church. It's like, who is this grandmother you continue to refer to? After talking about how you can just use anything you have, they then pull out 3 of the most expensive pans you've ever laid your eyes on. And that's what they're going to cook their rolls in, these 3 cast iron pans. I can never say the name right. You know what I'm talking about. And she's got her, not 1, not 2, but 3 of them to use in her oven. So, just use what you have at home. And then it's time for Meghan to relay a little bit of information she's got, a little side project of hers. She's made some compound butter that she would like to offer to eat with these rolls come dinner time. And when she tells about her compound butter, the response we get from Claire is, awesome, cool. She doesn't think it's awesome or cool, or maybe she does, and that's as excited as she's ever going to get about anything. But Meghan is just so deflated. She wants Claire to be so excited with everything she does, and she just can't seem to impress Claire. But of course, that means we've got to go off into the compound butter land. During the compound butter making, we get another little conversation about the fact that she says herb, and her husband, who could that be, says herb, and he thinks it's really funny and very American that she would say herb instead of herb. Ha 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 ha. I'm just being taken down with laughter. Meghan likes to offer some knife skills at this point. She says, put your hand on top of the blade as you are chopping down onto your herbs. And it's like an old-fashioned paper cutter. Old-fashioned. I still use those in the office, when I'm in an office. And then she's going to zest some lemon into the garlic butter. I know that we need brightness a lot of times when we have heavier flavors like garlic. I've never put lemon into my garlic butter. That's probably my own personal failing. Maybe that is really what my garlic butter is missing, but I hadn't thought about that. Anyway, she takes this time to let us know not to grate too deeply because you got to watch out for that pith. Oh, really? We know about pith now, do we? We didn't know about pith when we were making that disgusting pasta, the one you posted, that with those dry noodles and your burnt garlic and your pan full of pith. But watch out for it, because it can be kind of bitter, says she. We know it. We just wondered if you did. She also takes this opportunity to let us know that you don't have to just do garlic butter as a compound butter. There's lots of things that you could do. She says you could do like a spicy butter or maybe even a cinnamon and sugar butter. And you know what you could also do? Press flowers into it. You could put pressed flowers into your cinnamon sugar butter. Wouldn't that be nice? God almighty. Is there anything that she isn't going to put flowers in? Is there any realm of reality in which we aren't eating mouthfuls of dried flowers? I'd love to know where that is. Okay, then we get to the scene. We get back to the kitchen with Claire. And this is really where the cooking begins, where the chefery takes over. And they're going to cut the fish, and she shows Meghan how to do it. And Meghan does a good job. And Claire gives praise to the level that Meghan has been wanting it this whole time. You could see Meghan's little soul shining. She's just so excited to finally be receiving accolades from this real life chef in her kitchen. And then they commence to making the stock. It looks like the most amazing stock, but they put in all kinds of stuff into this. And Meghan, she's like, the chef's saying we're going to put this, 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 and this. And it's like literally every vegetable in the kitchen is going into the stock pot. And she says at one point that they want some shallots. And of course, this is another moment to point out the difference between the Brits and the Americans. Shallots, said Meghan. Shallots. she says to the camera, shallots. But then she decides to throw her guest a bone and be like, but it is nicer the way you say it, shallots instead of shallots. That's nice. I just think, I don't know, pronunciation stuff really bugs me. You say things however you want to say it. I could care less. I'm not going to make a thing of it. Shallots. Shallots does sound better. We get on to cutting the veg. We're going to blanch the veg so that we can put the fish on top of it. It's a whole lot of little things. At another point, we're going to be, fixing the clams. I'm like, clams? It's like every time I think we're done, we're pulling out another ingredient. They get out the clams and then they just instantaneously put them in some broth and some red wine. Then they're opening them. They're cutting the little meat out and getting the stomach bit off. And, they're going to... I'm like, what are we going to do with these? These are just for garnish. They're not even really for anything other than just to dot on top of the poached fish when it's done. We're poaching the fish in this stock liquid that we made. And, you can't get that over 140 degrees. We're just gently cooking this halibut. It is so intricate. There's so many details. And it's really fun to watch someone who knows what they're doing and do so many things at once. And it's like the time that goes behind this plate of food is pretty immense. And I sound like Meghan, who's always going into great ecstasies and gales of amazement over the amount of time that it takes to put a meal on the table. But it's a lot. It's a lot of work to make 2 plates of dinner on this level. So it's no wonder people pay a lot of money to go and eat in a restaurant. The hours behind it, it's definitely something that, having never really eaten in a super, super, super nice restaurant, I don't think that I was really aware of how much you have to work just to get one plate out. I know how much I'm working in the kitchen, but it's because I'm feeding an army of people. But to work so hard for just these little tiny dinners, it's fun to watch somebody who is so good at it, because I would be so flustered. And that's what Meghan says, so in real life, in the restaurants, it's crazy. And Claire's like, no. Because if it gets crazy, that means I'm not in control. So it's always very calm. It's always very zen. Because that's the way you cook and you're successful at it. If you're freaking out, then it's not going to be good food. Meghan uses this opportunity for another one of her one-liners. Oh, okay, so this is your moving meditation. Meghan must have just learned that term, because this is the same thing she said when Tan France was on the show, and Tan was talking about how his partner will go and bake bread when the kids are having meltdowns, and Meghan's like, oh, it's his moving meditation. Again, with Claire Smith, oh yes, it's moving meditation. Where did she hear that? Is that a term that they're using in California right, left, and center, your moving meditation? What even is that? I know what it is, but in all reality, can we just stop being so lame? Your moving meditation. Why does everything have to always be so mindful, thoughtful, present? Why do we always have to be so zen about everything? Why can't we just be... Claire is in control of herself. It's not like she's trying to have a spiritual moment. She just knows what she's doing. She knows that if she's chaotic and confusing, the food won't be good. And then she's not going to have the reputation she has. Moving meditation, nothing, Meghan. But she had to use her new term. She had to find a chance to slip in her new term. You know how much she dearly loves terminology. If there's one thing Meghan likes, it's words. Then it's time to plate the food. We're putting the fish onto a bed of those blanched vegetables that we had done earlier, our little poached fish. And then we're decorating the top of the fish with all manner of items. We've got nasturtium leaves and those little bits of clams, and we've got flowers and all kinds of stuff that's going on top of this. Meghan is in her element. Now, they are going to finish it off with some broth, but not yet. The broth is served on the side with nasturtium oil. When you get to the table, you pour the nasturtium oil into the broth, and you pour the broth onto your plate. That nasturtium oil is quite bright green. And then you get on to eating. What I find very interesting is Meghan's enjoyment of this meal is pretty low key. This is a person who desperately needs to be recognized and acknowledged for every little thing she does. She wanted her chips to be acknowledged, they weren't. She wanted her green juice to be acknowledged, it wasn't. She, wants to be complimented about her ability to roll the rolls, but unfortunately no compliments can be given there. And she's desperately crying out for a compliment. So you would think that people who need compliments are often very good at giving compliments because they know what their soul craves. this is a person who, she's a taker, but she ain't no giver. Because I would have thought that her reception of the food would have just been a little bit brighter and more enthusiastic. But no. And the thing is this. It's not that she didn't say anything. She said, oh, this is good. Oh, this is good. That would have gotten, if Claire had said that to Meghan, that would have gotten Meghan's disdainful look. That would have gotten Meghan's disappointed look. Because there's a lot of work that went into this. If you don't like the food, you could at least compliment the effort. Shouldn't we be lavish in our praise and robust in our approbation? Isn't that the quote or something along those lines? And I feel that for Meghan to be so withholding in her praise, is she getting Claire back because she doesn't think Claire gave her enough of what she wanted? Or is she just thoughtless and was like, it's not my favorite, so I'm not going to go over the top here? I don't know. After they get halfway through the dinner, Meghan's got to get up to go get presents that she wants to give to Claire. And Claire doesn't open these presents on screen. Obviously, that would not be in Claire's nature to open a gift in front of us. I don't even think she'd be able to handle it. So Meghan goes ahead and tells her what's in the packages because Claire's not going to open them, so she wants us to know about it. Again, we could have just done a segment on her wrapping the presents and talking about what she's going to give to Claire, but no. But when she gives Claire the little bag, the travel bag, she lets Claire know that that's her handwriting on the bag. That's my handwriting, Claire. I did that. And I find that to be obnoxious. I also enjoy a little calligraphy. And if I did something for somebody, I would just give it to them. I would never say to them, that's my handwriting on the bag. Okay, if they like it, they're going to like it regardless of whether it's mine or not. I'll let my calligraphy speak for itself. Okay? I don't need to push in. I don't need to hedge in and be like, that's mine. I'm waiting for a compliment now. Can I get compliments, please? Because Claire had not given enough. Well, Claire does compliment her writing and then goes on to talk about how Meghan had written up the menus and stuff for the wedding. And I guess Meghan had also had, I don't know if Meghan did it or if she had gotten an artist to do it, but they'd done a map at their wedding of where all the ingredients for the food had been sourced. And so there was a lot of paper goods attached to the wedding dinner, lots of menus and pictures and drawings and things like that to illustrate various elements of the festivities. And I guess Meghan had a hand in that. And so Claire is, complimenting her not just about the handwriting on the bag, but Meghan, you're so artistic, you're so good at this kind of stuff, yada, yada, yada. And that's where we end that episode. All right. I found this episode to be pretty enjoyable because I liked to watch Claire's cooking, but I did find Meghan to be particularly annoying in this episode because of her insecurities. Her insecurities make her talk too much, I think, sometimes, but not talk about anything to any point. And her insecurities make her overly obsessed with gaining some kind of buy-in from the person that she's with. So she becomes so needy on camera when she's around somebody who is intimidating to her. At one point, she goes into the pantry to get something, and she passes the chalkboard where she always writes some kind of little phrase. Some pun. That's the pun chalkboard. Every episode there's a pun. And this pun was just for the hell of it. Well, because that's the fish they had. They had halibut. So just for the hell of it, ha ha ha. And she tells Claire, hey, did you see our board? And then she jumps into her weird old-timey Hollywood talk that she loves to do this voice. She thinks it's really cute. And, yeah, just for the hell of it, see? That voice. She's debuted this voice before in old interviews. One time, way back when she was on Suits, she was asked, various questions. And at one point, she sort of guides the interviewer into talking to her about what she's like at the end of the night, because she wants to talk about how she gets kind of silly and sort of punch drunk acting because she's tired. And then she's like, and then I start talking in this voice, see, right now. And this is just a bit she does that she thinks is so funny.
When I get punchy late night on set, I always start to go into this oh, yeah, see? Come on, fellas, let's keep it moving. They like that.
And I'm like, Meghan, enough with the bits. Enough with the little sentences that you've written down that you think are so cunning and cute and fun about you. Just be a human. Is it so much to ask? All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow and the next day for 2 more episodes of this non-human in her kitchen trying to convince us that she's one of us. I'll see you guys later. Bye.